Welcome. Scott here. Here is an overview guide to the current Abyss Perfectum 6th Stratum. To access this stratum, you need to clear the previous 5 stratum. If you need help for the previous stratum, you can check out my Abyss video playlist or the PDF boss guides that I have listed in the comments below. Fight your way through each stratum while you search for the stairs leading deeper and deeper into the Abyss. Do note that it is not possible to call on friends for support in the Abyss. Here is a quick recap regards to Abyss. In Abyss, you need to field a party that fulfill the codes stated on the field. As there are restrictions placed by these codes, unlike other quests, Abyss content don't have HP requirements, turn requirements, or even KO requirements. You just need to fulfill the score requirements to clear the Abyss stage. Codes are rules that may affect both characters and enemies in a stratum. Each stratum or substratum of the Abyss will have its own set of codes, though all quests within a stratum will be bound by the same set. Codes can restrict which characters you may bring into battle, and may enfeeble your party or enhance your enemies among other effects. A stratum codes will displayed in the bottom left of the map and on each quest's preparation screen. They may also be reviewed in the pause menu during a quest. Do note that codes take effect the moment you begin a quest, and codes affecting statuses cannot be removed in the battle. You have to clear all the substratum mission to unlock the gates that allows you access to the next stratum. On this screen, you will see the list of rewards that you can claim for clearing the Abyss. All the rewards listed are permanent. The time-limited rewards are the obtained from the current co-op stage. Due to the requirements needed to field a party that meets the restriction placed by the codes, players who are attempting Abyss are required to amass a large roster of characters. When you are clearing the initial stages, you will lock those characters that you have used for that stage. Each stratum will have around 4 to 6 such stages. In short, you probably need around 12 to 18 viable characters for one stratum. Similar to Dimensions End Entropy or Transcendence, Abyss is a global exclusive permanent content. So don't worry too much if you are unable to clear them now. If you are lacking the characters to clear these stages, make plans with your future pulls so you have the characters to clear them. You can check out websites like the Tonberry Troop or FFOO tip for the event forecasts. Now let's proceed with a quick overview on the 6th stratum. There are a total of 6 stages in this stratum. The field code for this Abyss is: you need to field at least 1 green crystal unit and 1 staff unit. Green crystal and staff units will receive boosts for attack. Dagger units will have boosts for max brave. 4 out of 6 stages have character locks. You need to clear them and the 2 substratum before you can attempt part 5 and part 6 of this Abyss. To access the substratum, you need to use the stairs found on the map. All stages difficulty are LUFENIA levels. The stratum offers a lot of reminiscence of the past nightmare fights, but the orb requirement is different. For part 1, you will fight 2 wild shearers who are the main boss from Siren Lost Chapter. For part 2, you will fight 2 Lluma Mascara who are the main boss from Wave 2 in Dimensions Transcendence Tier 1 Reckoning stage. For part 3, you will fight 1 aggressive turtle and 1 sand Kraken. This is the same combo that you have encountered the recent Dimensions Transcendence Tier 6 Crucible 1 or the Left Crucible. For part 4, you will fight 2 Raquin where you have fought them previously during Invader from the Seas event where LD makes its debut. After clearing the 4 stages and the 2 substratum, which I will go briefly later, you will access to part 5. For part 5, you will fight the White Priest with 2 familiar that has debuted during Illusory Lighthouse Mission Dungeon where Kate Sith LD makes its debut. Although this stage is listed as a LUFENIA difficulty level stage, the actual difficulty is actually comparable with LUFENIA Plus fights. After clearing part 5, you will gain access to a chest where you can get a burst token and access to part 6. For part 6, which is also the last stage, you will face the Royal Mummy, which is accompanied by 2 many Royal Mummies that you have encountered in the Dimensions End Transcendence Tier 5 Reckoning stage. Overall, this can be a tough Abyss if your roster aren't deep enough. Alternatively, if you have Garnet, she will make the stages a lot significantly easier. Now we will proceed to talk briefly about the substratum. To access substratum 1, you need to clear part 1 and part 3 on the main stratum. The field codes for the substratum are: you need to field a party that consists of these 3 crystal colors, yellow, green and red. One of the units need to be a staff unit. Yellow crystal unit have its max brave boosted. You need to clear part 1, part 2, and part 3, which all have character locks before you can access part 4. Part 4 is a hybrid stage of the monsters that you have faced from earlier parts. As all the stages' difficulty are chaos, I won't talk too much on them. Just beware of the shift frame type F that you will be encountering in part 3 wave 1 and the wave 2 of part 4. It can dispel all your buffs and inflict oil injection debuffs on all your characters. So make sure you have spaced enough turns so you have the turns to reapply your buffs. If you need any help to clear these stages, you can check the videos found on my Abyss playlist. To access substratum 2, you need to clear part 2 and part 4 on the main stratum. The field codes for the substratum are: you need to field a party that consists of these 3 crystal colors, white, yellow, and green. One of the units need to be a sword unit. White crystal unit have its attack boosted. You need to clear part 1, part 2, and part 3, which all have character locks before you can access part 4. Part 4 is a hybrid stage of the monsters that you have faced from earlier parts. As all the stages' difficulty are chaos, I won't talk too much on them. If you need any help to clear these stages, you can check the videos found on my Abyss playlist. Now I will be covering the LUFENIA battles that you will be facing in the main stratum. Let's begin with part 1. You will fight 2 wild shearers. They have 12 million HP each. They are immune to elemental resist down and their own debuffs. They are weak against melee and ranged. They are also immune to delay and launch. On the screen you will see a timeline and a table listing the key effects from the auras. The LUFENIA countdown will begin at the start of the fight with the counter of 12. The orb will cancel at the 29% HP threshold. To uptick the orb, you need to deal damage from a debuff, special effect, or buff. Examples of units that can help on the orb is Ace, Garnet, Celis, Kane, Trey, Jegran, Maria, Vanille, the Emperor, and Kater. As the boss will most likely gets its chance to act after Brave Charge, you need some form of damage mitigation. Units that you can consider using are Warrior of Light, 9, Zac, Galov, Gladiolus, Horum, Orin, Prompto, 8 and Snow. As the boss will gain massive Brave from Brave Charge, you need to break them. Instant break units will help to handle the mechanics. Units that offer such utility are Noel, Strago, Gabrinth, Arthen, Jet, Chaos, Kate Sith, and Trey. If you don't have instant break, units that could set Brave to 0 are also useful here. They are Emidatalion and Edward. Gravity units like Bartz and Purim are also useful here. On this slide, I will be highlighting some of the key mechanics that you need to watch out for the fight. Like most LUFENIA bosses, these bears will gain stats boosts at the 79% and 49% HP threshold. When one of their HP is depleted down to the threshold, both bears will cleanse all the debuffs. So it is your best interest to trigger the thresholds for both bears at the same. Otherwise, you will need to keep on reapplying the debuffs. In additional to the LUFENIA aura stats boost, at the 49% HP threshold, the bears will also gain a post-turn Brave Regen of 50%. Keeping them constantly broken and avoid breaks from them are important. Other than the LUFENIA thresholds, the bears will also trigger Brave Charge at the 59% and 29% as well. When Brave Charge is triggered, they will cleanse all debuffs, increase their Brave to 100% of its max Brave. They will emit a red aura where they also gains 250% Brave damage resistance. Avoid placing a debuff when that attack could trigger the thresholds because you will end up wasting the debuffs thanks to Brave Charge cleansing mechanic. To dispel it, you need to break them. To break them, you can use an instant break, gravity shave them, or ignore the brave resistance with rainbow brave cap damage. You can also use Odin Summon to facilitate breaks as well. The follow-up attack from Brave Charge is Sphere Shot. If you don't break them, you will face them using the plus variant, which has a dispelling effect. If Sphere Shot breaks your character, the character will get inflicted with Puncture Wound debuff where they are unable to gain any Brave for 3 turns. Other than the Brave Charge mechanic, do watch out for Brio Shot, which could inflict the Poison Wound debuff. Overall, this isn't a tough fight as long as your party can constantly reapply the trap debuffs to uptick the orb. The stage favors Ace a lot, since when the boss cleanses the debuffs, it will also help to flip his whole card to blind stuff, thus trigger his off-turn trap damage. Now, let's continue with part 2. You will fight 2 Lluma Mascara. They have 11 million HP each. They are absorbs fire and are weak to holy. On the screen you will see a timeline and a table listing the key effects from the auras. The LUFENIA countdown will begin at the 79% HP threshold with the counter of 10. The orb will pause when player recovers at least 50% HP with an ability. The orb will reactivate when the boss takes a turn if its flames mode are active. Burst healing and launching are key components that you need for the fight. Examples of burst healers are Ishtala, Garnet, Yuna, Purim, Paladin Cecil, Maria, Lena, Aerith, Kumari and Rude. You need to initiate a launch to break the flame stance. Recommended launch units are Selphie, Kais, Sid Rains, Lael, Noctis, Chaos, Zeton, Cloud, Tifa and Fujin. If you need more burst healing or the units are already used in other stages, you can considering bring these units as calls for their healing utility. They are Lena, Sidor, Mog, Purim, Ram, Paladin Cecil, Kumari and Rude. Now, I will go through more in depth on the fight mechanics for this stage. These is one of the most annoying fights in the game. When you reach the 79%, 49% and 29% HP threshold, the boss will go into flames mode where you will see a prompt that a knockback will extinguish the flames. When its flames are active, it will gain 5% HP regen, which restores 220k for action taken by both party and enemies. The boss will boost its brave damage by 50%, reduces 30% brave damage and 40% HP damage received. It will also applies a field effect that inflicts the following: HP poison of units max 50% HP. Brave poison of the units max brave. Brave sap of the boss max brave. When flames mode is active, you see purple flames coming from its cylinders. To deactivate it you need to do a launch. The recast ability is Inferno Plus, which is a single target brave plus HP attack. It takes around 5 turns fill its recast. Do make sure you inflict some attack down debuff and avoid getting broken by it or it will really hurt. The boss also have other noticeable attacks: Purgatory, an AoE brave plus HP and Magic Slug, another HP attack from its arsenal. To avoid the fight becoming a war of attrition, it is important to get your launches ready when you are about to breach the thresholds. You can choose to do it one at a time, but you need to have ample supply of launch skills. If you don't have that much launch utility, you can supplement it with launch calls. Ishtala is the MVP for this stage thanks to her burst healing that will help to uptick the orb. I myself have brought Sid Rains and Selphie as my other characters, as those two characters have launch utility on demand, which allows me to keep the flames mode off the moment it got activated. Due to the HP attacks are quite dangerous and orb will gets activated once the boss gets a turn until you heal 50% HP again to freeze the orb. It is easier to handle this fight by doing boss no turns. Let's move on with part 3. In this stage, you will fight the pairing of the aggressive turtle and sand Kraken. The turtle has 13 million HP while the Kraken has 12 million HP. Both of them resist the element that you need to use to uptick the orb. The turtle resists fire and wind while the Kraken resists earth and thunder. The LUFENIA triggers is also being staggered among the two foes. The orb starts at the fight for the Kraken and it will cancel at 29%. The orb starts at 79% HP for the turtle, but it cannot be cancelled. To uptick the orb you need to deal the elemental damage with at least 200k HP damage in one turn. In order to do that damage, it also means you need to imperil the elemental weakness or deal another element to bypass the resistance. On the screen you will see the timelines and a table listing the key effects from the auras. So in order to uptick the orb, you need to bring a units that could deal those damage or enchant the element. The orb heavily favors the featured LD unit of this Abyss, Alisai, as she is able to deal all 4 elements with her red mage rotations. You can considering bring enchanters. For Thunder, you can bring Garnet, Ash, Desh, and Kryle. Both Ash and Garnet are dual enchanters. They also enchanter a second element, thus allowing them still deal elemental weakness damage since Holy and Water are not resisted by either boss. For Earth element, you can bring Gao or Guy. For Fire element, you can bring Ignis. For Wind element, you can bring Bartz or Fujin. Alternatively, you can bring units that have element in their damage. For Fire, they are Alisai, Xanda, Jet and Vaughn. For Earth, they are Alisai, Ishtala, and Xanda. For Wind they are Alisai, Sid Highwind, Shantato, and Ferris. For Thunder, they are Alisai, Lightning, Reno, and Ferris. As the boss have high turn rates or could delay you like crazy, you can do the counter and hit game by bring damage mitigator. A counter tank like Orin, 8 or Gladiolus are more useful here since you can rely on their off-turn damage for the orb whilst enchanting them with an element. As we can only fit a party of 3 at most, so you most probably need to supplement one of the elements as a call. You can use Fujin LDCA for Wind, Ignis LDCA, and Lulu for Fire, Ash and Kryle for Thunder, and lastly Gao LDCA for Earth. Compared to the other stages, this stage probably have the least amount of dangerous attacks you need to watch out for. Both of the enemies will have their auras activated at the 79% and 49%. The Sand Kraken can delay a target with Stonera. If its Brave is up, it will use Tentacle Explosion, a single target Brave plus HP attack. At the 49% HP threshold, it gain maximum Brave. Make sure you have means to shave it. The aggressive turtle can retreat itself into its shell and has a dangerous AoE Brave plus HP attack, Great Geyser. While it is in retreat mode, it gains an additional Brave damage resistance. So make sure you don't let it store too much Brave. You can break it easily with Ignore Defense, Gravity Shaving or Instant Breaks abilities. Most recent counter tanks like Orin, Beatrix, and 8 have Ignore Defense utility. It can chain its turn consecutively with spontaneity. As the aggressive turtle has the most dangerous attack among the two, I would suggest you focus on the turtle first. As neither of the boss is immune to delay or launches, you can easily do boss no turns with a nuking setup. I myself have bring Alisai with Xanda and Orin. Xanda is useful here because he fulfills the green crystal and staff requirements. Orin is used here because he can solo against this pairing. Now we will be focusing on the last part that features a character lockout. Let's look into part 4. For this stage, you will fight 2 Raquin. They have 11 million HP each. They have no major resistances. On the screen you will see a timeline and a table listing the key effects from the auras. The LUFENIA countdown will begin at the start of the fight with the counter of 10. The orb will cancel at the 49% HP threshold. To uptick the orb, you need to deal 400k total HP damage in one turn. The boss has a key mechanic called jamming mode where it will activate from 79% HP onwards. You will see those sharks turn red. Upon reaching the 79%, 49%, 29%, they will insert their turns after the unit they targeted. When they are in this mode, make sure you don't get broken by them or the targeted character will most likely get screwed by its screw attack plus. For the recommendations, you can use Garnet, Sid Highwind, Jet, Machina, Noel, Galvez, Zac, Von, Cloud of Darkness or Lightning. As launches of 150k is requires to bypass the damage immunity at the thresholds, you need to bring launchers for your team comp. They are Selfie, Keys, Sid Reigns, Lael, Noctis, Chaos, Zidane, Cloud, Tifat, Fujin, Sync, Kane and Dark Knight Cecil. As the break immunity is useful to prevent breaks, you can bring Ursula or Core. Alternatively you can lock with them with a dodge tank like Prompto, Cater or Ave. You can also guard against their attacks with Glove. The stages heavily favors the mechanic of the returning unit, Kais. Kais can boost brave gains while doing launch with his Selkie support, and his hero support can prevent breaks as well. He also ensure that the party always hit for critical damage with his auras. On the screen you will see screen caps of the knockback thresholds. Upon trigger the threshold, the boss will gain 99% HP damage resist and it will moves its turn to before the target. Following that you see another prompt that you need to deal at least 150k HP damage in launch to remove the stance. If you successfully meet the requirements, you will see the message can't reduce HP damage. Other than the thresholds you need to watch out for, do take note of the following. The boss can insert their turns in between your party's turn with blue splash. Some of their attacks ignore brave damage nullification effects. While they are in jamming mode, do not get broken by any one of the following abilities: Water Plus, Killing Combo and Poison Bite. Otherwise they will follow up with Screw Attack Plus instantly after triggering the break. Upon triggering it, it will most likely instantly KO the targeted unit. This attack will bypass any HP damage nullification effects. Other than its turn inserting mechanic, the boss don't really have a lot of dangerous mechanics. You can also easily hit the 150k launch damage with a burst phase using Sid Reigns LDCA. I myself have used Kais for boosting launches and Zidane to launch and delete their turns. Garnet is here because my Zidane has kidnapped her for this fight. Jokes aside, she is actually here for the green and staff requirements. Now let's proceed to the first of the last two fights for this Abyss. The stage is unlockable after you have done the following. Clear all the previous 4 parts. Clear all the 4 fights in Substratum 1. Clear all the 4 fights in Substratum 2. There won't be any character lock in the stage. You can use any of the characters that you have locked for the previous 4 parts. Although it is labeled as a LUFENIA stage, the stage difficulty is actually the same level with LUFENIA Plus. You will fight one of the toughest mechanic stage that is currently available on this game. You will fight the Wight Priest. It has 15 million HP. Accompanying it is the 2 familiar ghost boss that has 1.5 million HP each. They don't have any major resistances. The LUFENIA orb will appears at start of the fight. It will disappears at the 79% and reappears at the 59% HP threshold. When the boss acts, it will uptick the orb by 2. To uptick the orb, you need to do either one of the following. 1. Give the boss a turn. 2. Player deals at least 250k HP damage in one launch. 3. Player takes brave damage reduced by a buff. On the screen, you will see the timeline showing the key thresholds. I have also included a table detailing the LUFENIA auras boosts that the boss received. On the right side of the screen, I list down the options you need. To deal 250k damage in a launch, you can set up a launcher with strong brave battery to supplement your launch damage. Units that can trigger launch on demand are valuable here, but this isn't everything that will ensure you be able to complete the fight. To deal damage to the Wight Priest, you need to kill the familiar first. Once the Wight Priest is exposed and gets out from its perfect dodge stance, make sure you keep its turns disabled so it doesn't go back to hiding again. To disable its turn, you need to inflict a confusion type debuff or paralysis. Make sure you have unit that can disable have his or her turn before you trigger the thresholds at 79%, 59%, and 39%. It is highly recommended to bring a turn disabler for the fight. As the boss is quite squishy by today's standards, you can actually paralyze the boss and nuke it to death. I will talk more on the methods on the later slides of the guide. If you have played through the Illusory Lighthouse Mission Dungeon event, you should be quite familiar with how the mechanics work. At the start of the fight, the boss enters into perfect dodge mode. You won't be able to deal any form of damage until the familiars are dead. Whenever its turns is up, the White Priest can attack you or buffs the party. So it is not advisable to keep in that stance for too long. Before you deal the finishing blow to the last familiar, make sure you always have a unit that has his or her turn before the White Priest so you can stun lock the White Priest with either paralysis or confusion. This will prevent it from going back to hiding again. Other than it will trigger perfect dodge on its next turn, the boss will gain instant turns and warp its turns to act at the 79%, 59%, and 39% HP thresholds. So make sure you keep the boss turn disabled when you breach those thresholds. Upon activation of the instant turn, the White Priest will gain 3 turn launch immunity. It will be launchable 2 turns after its warp turn. So disabled it for 2 boss turns and you can launch it again to uptick the orb again. If you didn't disabled it, it will goes into perfect dodge and resummons the familiar again. This cycle will continue until the White Priest is dead. Technically you need to maximize the damage phase when the boss is launchable while keep its turn disabled. Otherwise you have to stall it for 2 turns, before you can launch to uptick the orb again. While the boss is disabled and immune to launch, you also cannot accumulate or waste too many unnecessary actions till the boss disabled turn comes, otherwise you will face the countdown ability which will end your run. Lots of players choose to finish up and nuke the boss to death after they got its turn disabled. Now let's focus more on some additional stuff that is important to know before I talk more on the approaches. The familiar can inflict a debuff called Grudge with its Dread plus attack. The debuff will uptick when the inflict units receive Brave damage. The debuff's effect upgrade will include Brave Poison and HP Poison. When the debuff stacks is at 3, the HP Poison is 50% of the inflicted unit's max HP. Here is some additional notes that I have for the fight. 1. To uptick the orb with launches, you can launch the main boss or launch the familiars. In my no BT run, I have purposely let the White Priest to get in perfect dodge so it resummons the familiar. This way my Reigns can launch those familiar to uptick the orb. 2. As mentioned earlier, do not kill the familiar if no one's turns is in front of the White Priest. Otherwise, the boss will goes back to perfect dodge mode again. Wait for another turn before you kill the familiar to trigger pure malice so you can fight the White Priest. Patience is important if you are not deploying the nuking strategy. 3. Make sure the boss is inflicted with a disabled debuff, confusion or paralysis, before you lower its HP to 79%, 59%, and 39%. On the screen, I list down the list of approaches you can consider. If you are blessed with bursts, you can choose to deploy a nuking strategy, which is definitely the easier method. After the familiars are dead, the user have Garnet set her burst auras, Selfie use her LD debuff. He has Machina initiate his burst phase. With that setup, you can easily deal enough damage to wipe out the boss from 79% to 0%. Remember to trigger the burst phase before the 79% HP threshold, otherwise the boss won't be launchable anymore. If you don't have the crew for nuking strategy, you can adopt the stun lock approach. The general idea is keep boss turn disabled with turn disable utility. Set up launch with either Selfie LD, Kai's hero support, or using Sid Reigns LDCA. Initiate your burst phase to launch the boss from 79%. Hopefully you are able to deal enough damage to lower its HP to 59% so you will skip an instant turn trigger. Redisable the boss turn for 2 more turns and continue the launching onslaught afterwards. If you need any further help on the stun locking approach, you can check out my videos for the demonstration on how the approach is being done. Now we have reached the last stage of the Abyss. This stage is only accessible after you have completed part 5. In this fight, you will face the royal mummy that has 20 million HP and it can summons 2 royal mini mummies which has 5 million HP each. The LUFENIA plus orb begins at the start of the fight with the counter of 12. To uptick the orb, you need deal 5 HP damage in a turn to the royal mummy. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the key triggers that you need to watch out for. The boss will gain stats boost throughout the fight. At the 79%, 49%, and 29%, the boss will initiate a phase called Demanding Sacrificial Attack which the mini mummies will kamikaze itself. If its HP is above 50%, the attack will bypass last stand immunity and kill off the character. Make sure that mini mummy's current HP is below 50% when you lower the main boss HP to the mentioned thresholds. On the right side of the screen, you see my list of recommendations that I have for the fight. On the top of the recommendation, you can see the difficulty decreases depends on how well geared your Garnet is. If your Garnet has her burst plus, the fight is an easy one. You probably could end killing the boss first before he gets too dangerous. If you have just Garnet LD, you can just focus on bring damage mitigation and a unit that deal the 5 HP damage attacks in a turn for the orb. If you don't have Garnet, it is very tricky to set up those team comps. Otherwise, you can use the Ishtala revival trick to remove the orb. I will talk more on this in the later part of the guide. For units that can deal 5 HP dumps off the bat, they are Machina with his HP, burst, attack. Noel with his EX. Sid with his EX and LD and his LD follow-up. Alisai with her enchant redoublement and her LD. Sid Reigns with his launches with his impact strike plus active. Zack with his S1 and S2. Prompto with his EX and LD. Tifa with her LD and S1 plus. Her EX will also meet the orb target if it is a full launch. Sync with her LD and EX with a full launch. You can also consider using Locke if you intend to go for him in the coming weeks. Special effect like Cane Lancet and Core Link Strike will also add to the HP damage count requirements. Units that deal follow-up also help to support the orb like Noctis and Cloud of Darkness. Noctis also have skills to meet the 5 HP damage requirements while Cloud of Darkness can meet the requirements with her S2+. Add a Link Strike and you can uptick the orb with units that only deals 4 HP damage in one turn like Lily Set, Kais, Lightning, Queen, and Cater. Even units that can only have 2 to 3 HP dumps, you can also allow them to uptick the orb. For example, I have make Titus uptick the orb with the following combo. Titus has his BT effect up and Core use his Oath buff on him. Titus uses his LD, 2 HP dumps, it will triggers the Core Link Strike, 1 HP dump, and his 2 follow up from his BT, 2 more HP dumps. So 2 plus 1 plus 2 equals 5. Unlike you are deploying the full nuking strategy, as the boss will triggers the sacrificial attack on the thresholds, you might want to stand by damage mitigation for your party. You can consider bringing 9, Orin, Snow, Purim and Ursula. On this slide, you will see the screen caps for the thresholds. Always ensure the mini royal mummies HP are below 49% before you lower the main royal mummies HP to the following thresholds: 79%, 49%, and 29%. Upon triggering it, the mini royal mummy will use Lake Fire plus if HP is above 50% and Lake Fire if HP is below 50%. Both attack variants are guaranteed hits. The damage is quite negligible if you have attack down debuffs on the boss. The main mummy might also use Ancient Stomp plus. It is a single, guaranteed hit, Brave plus HP with splash damage. Similar to the ghosts from part 5, the mini mummy can inflict grudge debuff with its bleed plus attack. The poison effect will increase when the inflicted target takes a brave hit from the bosses. Before I continue to the last slide, here is some general tips that I have for you. Just before you approaching the thresholds, avoid killing off the mini mummies. The Royal Mummy will revive its minions and they will follow up with Lake Fire Plus that will foil your run. Time the use of your 5 HP damage attacks wisely so you can uptick the orb to keep it a healthy range. Depending on the setup of your team comp, it is best not give the boss too many turns other than the scripted HP attacks. When forming your team comps, avoid bringing too many single target focused HP units. You need to constantly damage the mini mummies so you can avoid the suicidal Lake Fire Plus. If you don't have Garnet geared up, you can consider bringing Ishtala and use the revival trick. Special thanks to ZK_FOO for sharing this strategy on Reddit. So how do I remove the orb with Ishtala? Firstly, do not use your Ishtala EX in the beginning for the fight. Get the orb to be at +1 on Ishtala's turn. It can up to 5 on her turn since you can use her A 3 times and one of the 2 calls once to lower the orb. Use your call on Ishtala's turn. The orb will tick to 0, go off and your party will die, except Ishtala as the caller has died on her behalf. Ishtala comes back and uses her EX skill so she revives the entire party. If you want to use the orb removal strategy, just bring Ishtala, yellow crystal staff, and another green crystal unit who is preferably a tank if you give these bosses turns. Snow fulfills both conditions, green crystal, tank, and is one good option for that. Ace would be another good green crystal option for example. If your Ishtala is greened, the party options for your team comp will be much wider too. You can check out his video more for the demonstration on the setup. I have also included the link in the video description and comments below. Please do support him by subscribing to his channel. Alternatively, Aerith also works for this strategy, but you need to get your summon phase ready so she can revive the fallen allies while in the summon phase. This strategy works in Abyss because there isn't any KO requirements and the penalties for revival of units have reduced so that your score won't get hit so hard like in the past. But do try to keep in the KO revivals to minimum as there is still a score target that you need to meet in Abyss. I have come to the end of the guide. Hopefully, this will help you. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you are looking forward future content like this, please subscribe to my channel for future related content. Good luck and bye.